Hello, teachers. Here we talk about assessments. Assessing your students is something we do visually. When students come to you needing your guidance, you can begin to assess them immediately when they're in front of you. And so, how heavy is your student's head or your client? Looking at the diagram, you see how the head, the ear in line with the shoulder is where we're trying to achieve good posture. And notice if your student's head drops towards the front, the head could potentially weigh 42 pounds. And so this will begin to bring light to where you need to be and how to address and cue for your students. Here you might notice that the posture is off here with the pelvis. Notice the belly. Much of the belly, or in this case not much, but some of the belly is in front, falls forward, accentuating and exaggerating the S-curve in the back, which actually you can clearly see there's compression in the lower back. It should be much more of an posterior tilt instead of an anterior tilt, which is what you see here. And then the lower back pain will happen particularly when these muscles, the QL muscles and those larger muscle groups in the back become shorter, begin to pull on the joints, and the joints begin to compress in the spinal column. Notice how close these muscles are to the scapula and how they're fixed to the spine. You might notice your students during a yoga practice and help guide them to understand what an erect back really is. And you can see the shoulders lifting in the bottom picture and how the head drops, putting way too much load on the spine. And observing your students in class, you can always recommend that they try an IPATH class so that they better understand what lengthening is all about. Muscle integrity, which happens when the joints are free, which is what we do in IPATH, releasing the joints, freeing up space, bringing in awareness. And here's the young man with scoliosis. That's a distortion of the skeletal system, the ribs, of course, in the back body. You notice that one shoulder is slanted. The right arm is completely different from the left. This usually tends to happen with poor sleeping positions and slouching, but mostly is from sleeping because it's a longer period of time in a compromised position. IPATH is perfect for helping scoliosis. Resting on the block, one single block under the back, or if a student is wide, 2 blocks to help open the chest and balance off the joints in the shoulders as well as the spine. And here we have an assessment. You can tell by the markup. And you will also be able to mark up this way if you have an iPhone. I'm not really familiar with other types of phones, but with the iPhone, you have markup access and capability on your phone. Notice the lower back here. She's again slightly tilted anteriorly instead of posteriorly, or neutral is even better. And maybe in a yoga class, you notice that in this example, the student is doing cat and cow. You can clearly see that she is hyperextending through the elbows. Now, in a yoga class, and her ankles are very tight, they're really high off the floor, and her lower back, she has a lot more, as I lovingly say, more of a cow position easily, as opposed to a neutral spine or a cat's back. She is a likely and a good candidate for IPATH to lengthen the muscles, balance off the joints around the lower part of the body, and help her understand the differences between strengthening and being overflexible within the body, how that over time will begin to unravel the body using fascia as well as the joints. And so when you're assessing also, you're noticing their clothing. Here is, you clearly see the difference on the right side versus the left with a few of the wrinkles with the t-shirt. So that is clearly a distortion with her joints, with her skeleton, and it's reflecting in her clothing. Wrinkles are very helpful for us to identify some of these, to identify some of the areas in the body that are misaligned, and clearly the shoulder is usually a dead giveaway.